Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all things entertainment. It's always a good time. Fantastic Four, The First Steps, is out now in theaters. And guess what? It's fantastic. I had to make the joke, but it is pretty freaking good. Okay, I did really like it, and I'm excited to talk about it. I like the new direction that Marvel has gone a little bit lately. It's pretty nice. I'm liking it, and so I'm excited more for the future now after this and another movie like Thunderbolts. I'm more excited for the future of Marvel, so let's dive in to talk about Fantastic Four, The First Steps.
Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
So obviously we got to talk about the team, okay? The whole movie is kind of centered around like the family dynamic that the Fantastic Four have. And I think they do a pretty great job at doing that. And they give each character a decent amount of time, mostly, to flesh out their personality, to showcase things that are not just like the stereotypic imagery of the Fantastic Four, which I think is really good. It's not just about they have superpowers. It is more about the actual team itself and about the people, not just about, the Thing is made of rocks and he's super strong, or Reed can stretch. It's like, no, these characters are like vastly different from that. Like the things they really show off in this are the more nuanced sides of things that I really like. The Thing is like the heart of the team. You know, he cares a lot about all the character, like all the other members of the Fantastic Four. He cares a lot about his city and the kids and different things like that. Like he has a lot of caring features. He's really kind of like the heart of the team. You have Johnny Storm, who's kind of underrepresented in terms of like his smarts. He has a good little scene in this where he gets to showcase that he's not just hot-headed like he can be, but also he can take the time to think about things a lot, and I really like that. Reed Richards is obviously like supposed to be a really smart guy, but you know, he also struggles with a lot of turmoil because he is the leader of this superhero team. He has to help protect the world. He has to also be really smart and advance the world, and that's just a heavy burden. So not only is he the smartest character, but he also is struggling with a lot of deep internal turmoil. You also have Sue Storm, who is kind of like the Thing in that she is kind of the heart of the team, and in this movie particularly, she is basically the main character. Like the whole team is, obviously, but I've seen a couple other people talk about this too, is that Sue Storm really kind of is not like necessarily the main character, but the movie focuses on her a lot. And so you kind of get to learn a little bit more about her, but also like how she impacts the team and how she impacts the world. She gets very involved in politics and is very known for talking people down. It's not just about her superpowers, like although she can, turn invisible, she has force fields, things like that. She is very good at just talking people down and negotiating and being the spokesperson, not just for the Fantastic Four, but as they progress in the movie and they have to face off Galactus, she is the spokesperson for Earth, basically. We also get another member of the Fantastic Four, so they become the Fantastic Five, and that's the son of Reed and Sue, and that's Franklin Richards. We only see him as a baby in this movie, but it wouldn't surprise me if later on down the line we're going to see an older version of Franklin, as he's kind of like I believe in the comics, he's almost like a multiversal type being, I think, where like he can warp reality and a bunch of other different kinds of things. That's why Galactus really wants him in this movie. But I really like the focus on the family side of things, how they interact with each other, their little dynamics, I think are just so much fun. And I think a lot of that does come down to the actors that are playing them. I think they're all doing a great job. They're doing a fantastic job. Okay. I can't help it. I say it all the time. They're doing fantastic. I do like how they are interacting with each other. I like the kind of dynamic between Johnny and the Thing, Ben Grimm. And you get more of the dynamic between Reed and Sue. I feel like a lot of times the dynamic, like the almost friend dynamic that we see, is mainly between Reed and Ben. But I do like that they kind of mix it up. And obviously Johnny and Sue have their whole dynamic going. And then Reed, like, he has Sue, and he does have Ben, who is like his friend, but because of the accident, they seem almost a little bit distant, but you can see that they've been mending things and working together a lot. So you get a lot of the subtext, which I think is something that Marvel isn't always great on, but I like that they were able to show that in this to kind of dive deeper into their characters. And I just think it makes us care more about them and about what is coming for their story.
I herald Galactus.
Additionally, I think this movie did a great job at kind of upping the stakes with their level of threat while also not feeling too overly powerful. Like, they didn't nerf the main threat being Galactus, but they also didn't make him too, like, he's not underpowered and he's not overpowered. You know, he's like just the right amount. Because I feel like lately we will get villains where they don't seem to fit the right level of power, and we don't really like that. Because the problem with that being is that because of the way the MCU had been laid out, Thanos was a huge, like, cosmic level villain. You know, he was very strong. He held the infinity, like, reality as itself was the stake. And so it's like, how do you work back up after that? And I know they have plans for Doctor Doom, and I'm very interested now after watching this movie to see where that's going to go. But I really like that in the Marvel universe, Galactus is a, like, world-ending threat. He's a very powerful threat, like same level as Thanos, I would say. He is, I don't know if he's considered a celestial, but like basically that kind of being where they are essentially a god and very all-powerful. And compared to the older Fantastic Four movies where, like, Galactus wasn't really a person, but they held the concept of, like, the world devourer. How do you portray a world devourer? Like, in the comics, he's supposed to be a human, but how do you do that while also still kind of making sense that he consumes worlds? And in this, I feel like they do a great job at combining it, like using his ship to break things down, and then he absorbs all the energy, and so then he's just a very powerful, like, giant, essentially. But that also allows him to still be really powerful, but at the same time, he's defeatable. He's not just, oh, we can't beat this guy. And I like that they're not like, oh, we have to kill him, because they're very much aware. They're like, we can't do that. And I believe in the concept of the MCU, he's a Nexus being. So he's kind of like the one and only Galactus and kind of just exists here. But I could be wrong. But I like that aspect of the movie, is that he feels powerful and he feels threatening, but isn't to an over degree that will then make everything else be like, well, why had this never been discussed before? You know what I'm saying? Like, if they defeat him, is that going to be like, well, that's freaking, he was cannon fodder, that's stupid. Like, in this, like, he's defeated, but he's not ended. Like, a lot of the times they have to kill the villain, and in this one they didn't. And I think that was a good idea. And also, like, along with the stakes, he is targeting one of the family members that we have now been shown to care about. Like, they spend a good maybe third of the beginning of the movie getting you used to these characters, connecting you with them, and feeling for them. And then, of course, in the latter half of the movie, that is going to be ripped away from you, because now Franklin, the young child, the newborn baby, is being targeted by Galactus to essentially be his successor. So now you, as the audience, feel for the main characters. You have some empathy with them, that their child is going to be taken. A member of their family is going to be taken away. And so that just makes you feel like there is more stakes about it. And then you also have, not a major threat, but in the beginning kind of almost feels like a threat, the Silver Surfer. I really like her character, and I like the moments she gets. Like, she seems cold and distant, and, I'm not one who knows everything about the comics of anything. I'm going to be so real. I'm coming at this usually from the view of just a movie watcher, and upon my researching, I look up comic stuff, and that's usually what I find. But as an actual viewer of movies, I don't always interact with the comic side of things. So, anyways, Silver Surfer, I didn't really know much about her backstory, but she's seems pretty menacing. But then you get kind of the conversion almost over to the good side because of Johnny and his work he does to translate her messages and different stuff like that. But then it just allows, you can show off her cool powers, and her acting was pretty, very not, I wouldn't say monotone, because I don't think that's necessarily right, but it's almost monotone, but not in a bad way, like an intimidating kind of monotone. Like the fact that she's just so cold-hearted about every word that she says makes her feel more intimidating and kind of foreshadows the bigger threat that is coming. And I love all these little details when it comes to the stakes. It makes me feel more scared for the movie. And in fact, spoiler warning, so skip to the next chapter. We're just going to move on after this little bit if you don't want the movie spoiled for you. Sue Storm almost dies. And for a moment, I was so shocked. I was like, there is no way they're about to just kill Sue off. But it had me, I was believing it. I was like, holy crap. I did not expect them to do that. And I wouldn't know why they would want to do that. But you never know now. I feel like sometimes things are off the table where shit can just happen. And so that part kind of got me. Okay, the stakes have been getting better in these movies, and I'm liking that. Just because you're one of the main characters doesn't mean that you're off the table for being killed. So I like that part.
Welcome to the Baxter Building.
We make a point to do family dinner every week.
So,
Sundays.
I talked about the family. I talked about the stakes of the Fantastic Four, and that part, fantastic. I think the whole overarching story, absolutely wonderful. But what I find really interesting is because, this world takes place in an alternate multiversal world, a different Earth than the 616 that our MCU is. I know that's not technically what it is according to comic lore, but based on how the MCU talks about it, they're 616, so we can chill about that. But anyways, with the world building, you have to sell us on the world, and the way they did it is incredible. I like that it wasn't just a generic, pretty much exact copy of the Earth we've already been seeing. They got the retro 60s vibe that kind of ties back to the 60s cartoon. You have little aspects of futurism in it, and just those little elements that make it feel a little retro and a little bit new at the same time. They even said it's kind of like a 60s period piece, and it really feels like that. And sometimes not necessarily in an uncanny way, but it crosses the line where some little bits are futuristic and some are more behind. It was interesting in the way they were blending things in order to really focus on style of the world that influences the Fantastic Four. It is like a futuristic retro vibe, and I think it's awesome. It reminds me a lot of like Fallout, the like video games, where things are advanced, but not in the same way that they are in the modern world or in like the modern MCU world, where like transistors exist in normal MCU, and in our world they aren't there yet. Like Fallout takes it where they're further in the future, like same time period as us, but transistors hadn't been invented, so vacuum tubes just kept going. Whereas in Fantastic Four, it's kind of like if the 60s was slightly more advanced, but still not the transistor era yet. You know what I'm saying? So like 60s level of ideas and thinking, but not modern day, like, oh, this is how we would want things. Like things are still big, like things are kind of retro, like even in their spaceship, like it's still advanced, but it reminds me more of like Alien advanced. That's what it kind of looks like to me in there. Alien or Star Wars, where it's considered future type tech, but it is like on a technical standpoint still behind ours. But I think it works for their universe, and it also allows us to kind of focus more on the characters and about their powers and their story, rather than, oh, they're in the tech world and you have to rely on that. Like a lot of people complain about like the nanotech masks and stuff, and I totally agree. I think it's overused a lot of the time, unless it's like really not necessarily well done, but like necessary to a character. Some characters I think it works good for, and some you're like, what the freak, this makes no sense. Like Black Panther, some people don't like it, but it makes sense for their characters. But characters, you know, like Ant-Man or Iron Man, don't always work with the nanotech stuff. Iron Man makes a little bit more sense, but like Ant-Man, you're like, dude, you got a helmet. Okay, you don't need the nanotech stuff. Or Star-Lord kind of makes sense. He's in space. They got a lot of that high technology kind of stuff. That just makes sense. I think the way they do the rest of the world in Fantastic Four just allows it to be its own little thing, and in some aspects allow it to kind of cross over. Like some of that futuristic stuff, like their ship, some of that technology, I think will kind of work well. Like we saw in Thunderbolts in like the end credits, where you like see the ship come in. The way it looks in both Fantastic Four and in Thunderbolts, I feel like kind of lines up with both worlds' styles, where they're not going to clash against each other. But what I do think could be interesting when we see them in Avengers Doomsday is some funny interactions, like about how different their worlds are, where like they travel into the 616 universe and they, like as in our usual MCU characters, they have to explain like the different technologies and stuff. And the people back then, they're like then the Fantastic Four are talking about like 60s level tech, and they're like, what? That's like stuff we had years ago. And that I just think will be super fun and like we can get some interesting reactions out of that, and I'm hoping that we do, and it kind of allows some more fun integration, just like how, you know, Doctor Doom is supposed to be played by Robert Downey Jr., who played Iron Man. I'm hoping they have a line where they're like, oh, he looks exactly like Iron Man, and then they have to explain like, oh, he's not Iron Man, he's a variant, that kind of thing. And I just think that'll be really interesting to see. But that is my thoughts on Fantastic Four. Let's get into our rating real quick of Fantastic Four, The First Steps. If you don't know our easily entertained rating scale, because we don't do 1 to 10s around here really, from least to best, it is garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day every day. And Fantastic Four, like I said, it's fantastic. It's not an all day, every day, but I'm definitely going to say it's a go-to, especially for the recent Marvel movies. It is a go-to for me. It is so much fun. I'm going to rewatch it, and I don't think it's going to really lose its rewatchability as much as some other recent Marvel movies will, but this one, they did a great job. So that is my rating for Fantastic Four. If you have a different rating, please let us know. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let us know down in the comments. But that is it for this episode of Easily Entertained. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe so you can be notified of all new episodes when they release every Tuesday. It's always a great time. And if you have ideas for future entertainment properties you'd like to hear me talk about in the future, also comment those down below so I can maybe get around to them sometime. But until next time, bye.